House, it's almost never happened where you won a seat. We now have 53 as opposed to 51, and we have 53 great senators in the U.S. Senate. Number two, I wasn't on the ballot.
You kept saying.
I said, look at me. I said, look at me.
Pretend I'm on the ballot.
But I have people, and you see the polls, how good they are. I have people that won't vote unless I'm on the ballot, okay?
Good interview with Chris Wallace on Sunday. Kellyanne Conway picks it up on a Monday. Senior counsel to the president. How you doing, Kellyanne? And welcome back here from the North Lawn there. I want to start in Florida. How does the White House view these victories for Senate and governor?
This is truly joyful and triumphant since we're in the holiday season, and the president made a big difference. I think that Governor Scott and Congressman DeSantis ran excellent campaigns, but this president getting in there several times in those last 6-7 days really made the difference. And also him encouraging them not to bail on their clear victories. You had Andrew Gillum not once but twice now concede to Governor Scott, to Ron DeSantis for governorship. They clearly won, and I think that people got another view of somebody like Brenda Snipes and her shenanigans, and that should be the first order of business for Governor DeSantis to really look at who's running these counties and this electoral process. Also, let me just say that the last time Senator Nelson ran for Senate 6 years ago, he won by 1.1 million votes, a 1 million vote plus margin. This time he lost. The people of Florida clearly don't want him to be the senator. He's been unremarkable. He should be credited for his service, but in the last few years he's been sort of unremarkable in his Senate record, and also he voted against Kavanaugh.
Got it. Just move out of Florida. What is your message for these suburban women who turned away from the Republican Party this past term? How do you win them back, Kellyanne?
Well, some did, not all did. And frankly, I don't like stereotyping people according to their gender or their race or where they live. But I think we always are looking for ways to expand the number of voters who like free markets and freedom, who want peace and prosperity, which this president has delivered. And I believe as time marches on, people will realize that if you try to roll back this huge economic boom, we have unprecedented unemployment numbers and growth numbers and optimism and confidence numbers from consumers, from manufacturers, from small business owners and aspiring small business owners. We can't go backwards. We literally cannot afford for people to have less of their hard-earned money, to have less job security and job availability, job mobility that we have because of this president's financial stewardship. That's a very clear nexus, and I think it showed in races like those in Florida, in the third most populous state with 21 million Floridians going to the polls and saying, we want to keep this peace and prosperity going. The suburban women also, I would note for you something very curious that didn't happen in the messaging from the left this time. They didn't talk that much about abortion. They didn't talk that much about guns. They were talking about other things, but they're going to struggle now in the House as the majority party, figuring out, are they beholden to this new leftward drift to socialism? They've got a 28-year-old socialist from New York who's got a hero's welcome. They have a 72-year-old. They have the 72-year-old socialist from Vermont.
Yeah, I get it. I got a lot more I want to squeeze in here, and these are going to be debated over the next 2 years. On the Mueller matter, I heard him tell Chris Wallace that he has submitted answers in writing, not turned them over to Bob Mueller. Can you say before Thanksgiving if those answers will be turned in?
I'll leave that to the president as outside counsel, Bill. I cannot comment on the timing, but I want to repeat for your viewers that this president and those around him have been completely compliant with every request. 1.4 million pieces of paper, folks, think about that. 1.4 million pieces of paper have been produced. 33 people or so, we read in the paper, have either been interviewed or asked for information and have complied. And that includes the President of the United States, who from the beginning has said there was no Russia collusion. I assure you there wasn't at the highest levels of the campaign. If other people were doing shenanigans, trying to make themselves important, or didn't have enough faith in Donald J. Trump that he can get the job done and beat Hillary Clinton on his own, which he did, he and Governor Pence did, to get elected, those of us at the highest echelons of the campaign weren't talking to Russia.
Or maybe they don't. On the media, we heard about new rules that will be set up. They're not yet made public, but here was the answer given to Chris Wallace from yesterday. Give our viewers a chance to hear this now.
We have to create rules and regulations for conduct, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing that. We're going to write them up right now. It's not a big deal. Nobody believes in the First Amendment more than I do. And if I think somebody's acting out of sorts, I will leave. I'll say, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate you coming, and I'll leave. And those reporters will not be too friendly to whoever it is that's acting up.
So do we know what the new rules are, Kellyanne?
They're in process, and look, the judge's opinion had to do with the Fifth Amendment process, the due process. It did not have to do with the First Amendment. You don't have a First Amendment right to be in the White House. Once you are allowed in, of course, then there needs to be a process. So that's exactly what the press shop is working on. But what the president said is incredibly instructive, Bill. He is saying that if somebody ruins it for everyone else, if the president had walked away early in that press conference, which is when the exchange occurred, then he would not have answered 68 questions from 35 reporters, which is exactly what he did. He is the most transparent, accessible president in our lifetime, if not ever. He's willing to stand there. He's willing to gaggle. He's willing to give all these interviews. He's willing to stand on the South Lawn. He's willing to have talk during a pool spray about policy. And yet, if someone, one or two are going to ruin that.
Right. You may have a lot of White House correspondents watching this interview wondering what the new rules are and what they have to pay attention to.
The press shop is deciding that. The press shop is deciding that. I think you'll hear that in the next few days or few weeks. I'll leave that to them. But in the meantime, here we are.
What are the bounds then by which those reporters need to operate when those new rules come out?
Well, the president has made clear that he believes that when you come to the White House, and I agree, you should show respect for the presidency. You should show respect and decorum for the White House. And some do and some do not. But I would also point out that the particular outlet in question has 50 White House passes, I'm told. Around 50 White House passes. They clearly have continued to be a 24/7 outlet without that reporter at work for those few days or so, and they continue to be fairly anti-Trump most of the time. Tune in sometime if you can stand the venom and the poison. I try to go on there and state the president's case when I feel like it's suitable. Invited there pretty often.
You said in the coming days or even a couple weeks, so I'll wait in the White House to give us that guidance. In the meantime, is that reporter allowed back in the White House? Because I was given a note about an hour ago that the White House made a, quote, preliminary decision to suspend a hard pass for Jim Acosta yet again. Are you fighting this?
I am not aware of that. I am not aware of anything happening in the last hour, and I would have to talk to the press shop about that. But
okay, so
obviously it was reinstated. He came here.
I got it. Is he allowed access to the White House today?
I don't know. I don't know that answer. I've got somebody from the press shop standing right here. I don't know that answer. But I want to broaden the conversation out to the White House press corps and freedom of the press. The president is absolutely right when he says nobody likes the First Amendment more than him. He's so accessible. He's always giving the answers. He sends us out here to talk about that. And I'm on TV almost every single day trying to talk about policy. But look at just last week. All the coverage, Bill, was about who works here, not the work that is done by the people who work here. Are we not interested in policy? Are we not interested in what goes on here and the many different things that happen through the cabinet rather than just who's in the cabinet or who's up or who's down? And I guess eventually everybody will be right. Everybody will leave at some point, including the president 6 years from now. But isn't there just the least bit of shame? Isn't the least bit of shame that the headlines and the Twitter that explodes about palace intrigue? It's really silly.
Anytime you want to talk policy, again, you're invited to come back here and discuss
Well, thank you.
Kellyanne, thank you so much for your time today. Kellyanne Conway for the North Lawn. Have a great week and a great Thanksgiving.
All right, President Trump taking a midterm victory lap as Democratic candidates finally concede in Florida's most closely watched races. And it comes on the heels of another Republican win just to the north in Georgia.
I won against President Obama and Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama in a great state called Georgia for the governor. And it was all stacked against Brian, and I was the one that went for Brian, and Brian won. Look at Florida. I went down to Florida. Rick Scott won, and he won by a lot.
All right, so what did the president learn from 2018 that he can now apply to the 2020 campaign? Here to weigh in on that, GOP strategist Liz Copeland. Liz, thanks for coming on this morning. He's pretty proud of Georgia and Florida. Florida, I think he's got a point. Georgia, though, is a red state. Should that have been that difficult to win that governor's seat?
Well, I think the president was smart in going to the states, specifically in Georgia. You know, he rolled out what we think we're going to see for his 2020 his re-election campaign. And the most important thing is that when our president goes to these states, he speaks directly to the voters, and they love it. They love what he has to say. They love that he's here. And you can really see this repeated all across this country for his re-election. And even in the Senate, you know, the president was able to help bring in a few more Republican seats in the Senate. You spoke about Florida. Yeah. That was a tough fight. It was a really tough fight, even down to, you know, several votes. And, you know, we came out ahead.
Yeah. You know, Chris Wallace did the interview yesterday with the president on the Fox News Sunday. You know, one of the points he really tried to push home was that a lot of voters really love what the administration is doing, the work they're doing, but they have a lot of issues with the president's rhetoric and his behavior. There was a lot of things that he should have learned from the midterms, I think. He lost a lot of support in the suburbs, it appears, and a lot of places that probably should be red are now blue. Do you think he learned any lessons?
Well, I think that the most important lesson that he took away, that there was a blue splash, I wouldn't call it a wave, but it was blocked by a red wall in the rural areas. He still has, you know, very strong support in the rural areas, and that's what counts when we need to get to 270 votes, electoral votes, to make sure that we win.
But that's not all that counts. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, if you look at Orange County in California, which is now completely blue. I mean, look at how tight it was in Texas. Texas is a red state. That Senate race with Ted Cruz was very tight. There's examples like that.
It was tight, but you know,
that should make him nervous, I would think.
Well, I think it makes us pay attention. I'm not quite certain it should make us nervous. Beto O'Rourke was not able to win in Texas, and we expected for there to be an increase in blue on the coastal cities. That's not anything that's new. That's been trending that way for several years now. What the president really needs to focus on is his supporters, the issues that are very important, of course, the immigration, but you also have to think about it. Consumer confidence is up. The economy is doing well. There are more jobs in this country than they were before he took office, and those are the things that are going to drive the voters to the polls. The
economy was certainly a big boost for the Republicans, absolutely. Let's talk about the Florida election, the mishaps that we saw in Broward and Palm Beach counties. Brenda Snipes is leaving her post after this election and says that she believes that racism was probably some type of a factor in the attacks against her regarding her handling of Broward County in this election. What do you think about that?
I think Democrats love to talk about identity politics. Yeah. Instead of focusing on the rightful administration, how to handle the electoral process, and the issues that are at hand here, that when the things don't go their way, when they lose, they throw that term out far too frequently.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. There's been a lot of criticism of her through the years with numerous elections. All right, thank you so much, Liz. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Who's competing as a girl? Boy, it doesn't sound like a girl. I have a low voice, so what am I talking about? Half the time when I'm calling, calling various places on the phone. Thank you, sir. It's like, whatever. I don't even correct them anymore. Then I say my name. They go, oh, sorry. I said, that's all right. I have a low voice. You never know. Transgenders grow out of it. A Toronto doctor, Dr. James Cantor, who happens to be gay himself, is the director of Toronto Sexuality Center and author of the blog Sexology Today. He's compiled results from a dozen medical studies that conclude that the majority of kids stop feeling transgendered past puberty. There are groups, and I hate to say activists because they're extremists, are upset because they don't like the results. Activists are not a meaningful representation of a community, Dr. Cantor said. These are people who argue that everyone should be treated the way they want to be treated as kids. They want sexual diversity, but they want everyone to be treated the same. And he talked about one study from the Netherlands that looked at and followed 127 transgendered children into adulthood, and more than half of them said that they no longer were transgender. 47% said they were still transgendered. And 24 didn't participate in the study. He said, as a gay man, he has heard dissent directed toward him from left and right-wing groups. He said, I looked at the scientific long-term outcomes and compiled them for everyone to see. The claims are thoroughly checkable, but people who have a point to make select studies that were on their side, he said. Pride Toronto, which trolled Cantor and posted his findings online, didn't respond when asked for a comment. Extremists don't want to examine real facts. Stay tuned for more of this special edition of The Laura Ingraham Show.
Most people think Hawaii is pretty wonderful, but most people don't find changing planes quite so wonderful. Hawaiian Airlines is on it. We're now flying nonstop from Long Beach to Honolulu and nonstop from Oakland to Kauai. And we're flying advanced new Airbus A321neo aircraft. We're talking a modern, fuel-efficient marvel of aviation technology here. The plane matters, and so does the airline. Choose well. Find our best fares at hawaiianairlines.com.
Lucky you, you're listening to a special Best of Laura Ingraham Show. After a relaxing Thanksgiving that you spend with your friends, your family, at home or whether you're traveling, the last thing anyone wants to do is you don't want to get to the stores and deal with this Black Friday shoppers waiting in line or camping out overnight. Well, luckily for you, SelectBlinds.com, they make it really easy to score huge savings on blinds, all from the comfort of your own home. You can take advantage of the upcoming Select Blinds Black Friday weekend sale with unbeatable deals on high-quality custom blinds, shades, and shutters. You're not going to see discounts this big again all year. Select Blinds takes the guesswork themselves to be other than the genders they were born before they've even gone through puberty, and then once they're through puberty and they've reached, sexual adulthood, most of these people have already gotten through the phase. It was a phase. But now we have these transgender-affirming programs, and not just programs. You have transgender-affirming exceptions and changes to rules of sports competition. Gosh, I don't know if I would have been this is a good way of saying it. Like, I was class athlete in my class. So there was a boy class athlete and a girl class athlete. We had 420 kids in our class. I was the female class athlete. Now, does that mean a boy can be the female class athlete? So what if you're a boy, you're born a boy, you call yourself a girl, you competed in all these, you've won everything. You won track and field, top of the girls softball, and then you killed it in field hockey or something else. Do you then get to have the distinction of being the girls' class athlete in a new way of looking at the world? I guess that's what the way.
Competing with girls,
yeah,
right?
I guess you can compete as a girl. So, Stephanie in Illinois. Stephanie, tell me your story before we get to Lee Habib and fatherhood. Steph.
Okay, well, this is the situation. I've been transgender. I'm 53 years old. I've been transgender since I was 13.
Wow.
Okay, and I feel that no male transgender should ever compete against real females because genetically we are born male and we are still male until we get our surgery. But still, even after surgery, we still have the advantage over women because of what we were born
Genetics.
As. Yeah, exactly. And, the left has gone crazy, Well,
why is... What I don't understand is if transgendered people want acceptance, you can't then go about displacing other athletes who have worked their what's off to be where they are from competitions with an unfair biological advantage. I mean, I just don't understand how that's fair on any level. And I think it's really refreshing, Stephanie, to have you, who is an adult transgender, to say, enough is enough. This is just preposterous. It's refreshing, frankly.
It's crazy and it's sick. Okay, it's crazy and it's sick. And then they want transgenders in the locker rooms showering with girls. Are you kidding me? That's crazy. Who would want to be in the shower with someone who is born a male but has breasts, but then you look down there and what do you see? You know what I mean? If I had kids, if I was a straight woman I wouldn't want my kids in a locker room with transgender, women or whatever. I wouldn't.
Now, are
even
you
want my children
are you
against-
married? Are you with somebody?
I used to be married, and I'm single now.